cargo in pursuit of one level of safety and security.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you all had a relaxing lunch and had a chance to visit with some of our exhibitors. As a reminder, please turn off or mute your cell phones and all electronic devices. Last year, American aviation made a major leap forward with the FAA's adoption of FAR Part 117. But despite ALPA's active, ongoing participation in the flight time, duty time arc, and the NPRM process, Part 117 remains a work in progress because it contains a carve-out for cargo operators. When it comes to cargo, there are still a ways to go to reach ALPA's goal of one level of safety and security. In the next panel, we'll discuss ALPA's initiatives on cargo flight and duty time, dangerous goods like lithium batteries, how to enhance security for cargo crews, and what else needs to be done to raise cargo to ALPA's one level of safety and security. Our moderator is my colleague and good friend, Captain Aaron Hagan, who chairs the President's Committee for Cargo at ALPA. Captain Hagan?
Thank you, Fred, for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aaron Hagan, and I serve as the chairman of ALPA's President's Committee for Cargo and fly for FedEx Express. The President's Committee for Cargo was formed in 2002 to address the unique issues facing cargo pilots. ALPA has long advocated the need for cargo operations to be brought up to the one level of safety and security that the association has strived to implement for the passenger industry. This committee works directly within ALPA and acts as an advocate on issues that must be improved within the realm of air cargo operations. For the next hour, we will address a few of the challenges facing the cargo side of the industry. I'd like to point out that one of the greatest challenges to our industry, pilot fatigue, did not go away for U.S. cargo pilots when the new FAR Part 117 flight time and duty time rules were established. The United States has the most developed air freight system in the world, and cargo-only flights make up almost 10% of the domestic air carrier operations. Cargo pilots fly the same types of aircraft over the same routes, through the same airspace, and into the same airports as pilots who fly passengers. Excluding pilots who fly cargo only from FAR Part 117 regulations presents a serious safety concern and affects almost everyone who relies on safe air transportation. ALPA has long advocated for one level of safety and security. We agree with the NTSB's chairman, Deborah Hirschman, who said as recently as last March, and I quote, "We were disappointed with the exclusion of cargo operators. Science does not support allowing longer duty hours for certain subgroups. The payload may be different, but the pilot's vulnerability to fatigue remains constant." End quote. One of the main goals of ALPA's President's Committee for Cargo is to bring cargo pilots and operations under the new, safer guidelines as Congress originally intended. Our pilots and the American public deserve nothing less. During this panel, we want to address several other significant challenges that face all cargo operations. The first of these is the safe carriage of lithium batteries. ALPA has been playing a prominent role in making sure that safety concerns associated with the air transport of these batteries is addressed. Our own dangerous goods expert and director of ALPA's Dangerous Goods Program, First Officer Mark Rogers, will give you a brief overview of the hazards and challenges associated with the carriage of these products. Next, the challenge of ensuring that air cargo is properly screened without interfering with commerce is an obvious problem. Over the last 12 years, the industry has implemented many security enhancements on the passenger side of the industry. The cargo side is still playing catch-up, but improvements in security are vital. Since the 2010 Al-Qaeda Dubai bomb plot, great strides have been taken to improve the security of goods transported on cargo aircraft. Today, we will hear from Mr. Tom Friedman from the Transportation Security Administration, as he will speak on air cargo advanced screening system and other measures being taken to meet these and other challenges in securing U.S. all-cargo operations around the world. Ensuring aviation safety and security comes at a price. ALPA supports a multi-layered, risk-based approach that fosters the economic growth and development of air cargo operations. Getting airlines, airports, cargo ramps, and infrastructure up to speed to meet these safety and security challenges involves many problems. However, it is imperative that we work together to create a more secure environment. From the Airports Council International North America, we have Mr. Chris Bidwell, who will address how these security challenges are being met and some of the impediments that our nation's airports face in doing so. I will refer you to our panelists' biographies for more information about their impressive backgrounds, which are contained in your conference programs. At the conclusion of the presentations, we will open the forum up for questions from both those of you here in the audience and those of you watching on the online video feed. Our first presenter today is First Officer Mark Rogers. Mark, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you today. I wanted to prepare a fairly brief presentation on what's been going on with lithium batteries over the last couple of years, and it certainly has been a very busy few years. See if I can bring the presentation up now. I know a lot of you are very familiar with the issue and have a lot of background in terms of lithium batteries, but to start off, for those of you who aren't as up to speed, I'd like to just have a short overview of the safety implications of transporting lithium batteries by air. Billions of lithium batteries are shipped every year as cargo. I'm sure many of you have at least 2 or 3 devices with you at any one time, including laptops and cameras and cell phones and so forth. The danger comes from defective, damaged, or improperly manufactured or improperly packaged batteries that may ignite in transportation. Once these are ignited, the fire will spread through the entire shipment, and it is very difficult to extinguish. There are, of course, transport provisions involved in lithium battery shipments. These regulations are based on older, less volatile batteries. When they first came to the United Nations in the mid-1990s, essentially the provisions that had been in place for alkaline batteries, small batteries, were applied to these new technologies, lithium batteries, and they were accepted from the majority of the dangerous goods provisions. Of course, most alkaline batteries and older technologies did not have the same kind of risk in transportation, and there hadn't been incidents. But lithium batteries are different in several very important ways, including the high energy density and a flammable electrolyte. But what the provisions implied for these new commodities included no dangerous goods label on the package, not specific packaging as for other dangerous goods, no inclusion on the pilot notification form, or required training for shippers. Since they were introduced in the early 1990s, there have been at least over 40 instances of fire, smoke, or heat in transportation, including 3 freighter hull loss accidents that may have involved lithium batteries. It's very difficult to determine exactly what happened in these accidents because often the fire may have initiated with a very, very small battery and then spread throughout the aircraft. And of course, once the aircraft impacts terrain or is consumed in a fire, tracing where the origin of the fire happened is very, very difficult to do. There have also been 3 separate FAA flammability studies looking at lithium batteries in transportation and the flammability of these shipments. There have been numerous regulatory changes culminating in a February 2002 ICAO Dangerous Goods Panel Agreement. And as the ALPA chairman of the Dangerous Goods Committee, I'm also part of the ICAO Dangerous Goods Panel, and I'm one of the 19 members that helps decide what the international regulations are. The ICAO agreement, which went into force January 1st of this year for international shipments, ends the exception for large shipments of lithium batteries. Anytime a shipment of lithium batteries in consumer quantities for consumer applications is shipped with more than 2 batteries in a package or 8 cells in a package, that shipment will now require training for the shippers, dangerous goods labels, acceptance checks by operators, an inspection prior to and after loading on the aircraft, and very importantly, will be included on the pilot notification form. That's resulted in a far greater number of shipments included on the pilot notification form for international shipments, and in fact, tomorrow, both the International Federation of Airline Pilots and ALPA will be issuing guidance to our members detailing how many more shipments will be included on the pilot notification form. This is a major advance in the safety of lithium battery transport. Of course, there are still some things that are still missing from the ICAO agreement, things that we would like to see at ALPA. It does not address batteries and equipment. And about 80% of all the lithium batteries that you'll find on the aircraft are in consumer electronic devices and are being shipped in equipment. So that's a fairly big area that hasn't been addressed. It doesn't address any stowage requirements, meaning that battery shipments are not required to be in a cargo compartment with fire suppression. It also doesn't limit the total quantity of batteries on the aircraft. The regulations stop at the package level, and once the package is complete, it is permissible to actually load the entire aircraft with lithium battery shipments. It also does not address the unique hazard from lithium metal batteries. That hazard is addressed domestically within the United States by some emergency rulemaking that took place in 2005, but in the international arena, they are still allowed to be shipped. And as many of you know, lithium metal batteries in a fire do not respond to halon. And right now, the ICAO agreement does not apply to domestic US shipments. It's not the complete solution. The ICAO agreement does improve the safety of lithium battery transport, but it won't prevent every incident or accident. And I've included 2 recent examples of fires on aircraft that demonstrate the challenge ahead. There was a 767 passenger aircraft owned by Austrian Airlines that had a fire in 2011 in Toronto. This was a pallet of e-bike lithium-ion batteries, and the flight was delayed, and the fire fortunately began on the pallet about 20 minutes prior to departure. Of course, as I mentioned before, there's no quantity limit on the number of batteries, and these batteries are permitted to be loaded on the main deck of freighter aircraft with no fire suppression. Fortunately, in this case, the fire was detected before it was loaded onto the passenger aircraft and was put out. We also had the 747-400 accident in September of 2010, which was UPS Flight 6 originating in Dubai en route to Cologne, Germany. That has been reported that the aircraft had between 80,000 and 90,000 lithium batteries on board, all different types, including lithium-ion batteries as cargo, lithium metal batteries as cargo, and then batteries in equipment. The fire rapidly spread, and there were no quantity limits on the aircraft. There's also no stowage requirements. And regardless of where that fire started, and we still don't have a conclusive report on that accident, the fact that there were 80 to 90,000 lithium batteries on board make this a lithium battery accident. So the challenge ahead is that the ICAO agreement would not have prevented either of these incidents. We do support, however, the adoption of the ICAO provisions domestically and urge that additional steps be taken to ensure the safe transport of lithium batteries. We're still awaiting harmonization, as was mentioned this morning, by the Department of Transportation with this ICAO agreement. And even though nobody has opposed the harmonization in comments to the DOT, we still don't have a final rule. To highlight the ALPA position, and just to clarify where we are on this, the basis of our position is that the regulations must ensure the safety of lithium battery transport. We feel that the batteries have to be packed to prevent damage, labeled so that all are aware of the risks. The shippers and operators must be trained. The packages should be subjected to additional acceptance checks and inspections. The batteries should be included on the pilot notification form so the crews are aware of what they're transporting, loaded in a cargo compartment with adequate fire suppression, and at a quantity restricted to allow the suppression to be effective. And we also feel that lithium metal batteries, the prohibition within the United States on passenger aircraft, should be extended to cargo aircraft. I often get the question, well, how many batteries are safe then, if we're going to limit the quantity? And the answer is we don't know right now. But the FAA is conducting testing with 5,000 lithium-ion batteries in the next few weeks, any time now, in a donated ex-FedEx 727 cargo aircraft in their Atlantic City facility, with a Class C halon suppression system to determine how that suppression system would deal with so many batteries in the cargo compartment. We also have noted that the FAA has said that no packaging currently exists to allow the safe transport of lithium metal batteries. And until this testing is complete and published, we feel that a conservative limit should be set and applied to all lithium-ion battery shipments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mark. I know that's going to bring a lot of questions forward. Next, from the TSA, Tom Friedman is going to tell us a little about what we're doing to make cargo shipping more secure, not only here, but internationally.
Well, thank you. And on behalf of the TSA, first off, let me thank you for the opportunity to be here and share some information with you. It's only through this industry-government relationship and partnership that we can achieve our common mission. Some of the things I want to touch on today are the current programs TSA is moving forward with. First off would be the ACAS pilot, our Air Cargo Advanced Screening pilot, our third-party K9 pilot, our known shipper management system, the advisory committees that we're involved with, as well as your association involved with, and an update on the all-cargo security programs, the revisions that are coming. A little background on ACAS. This pilot is designed to ensure that the air cargo industry has the capability to respond quickly, accurately, and timely to verify that messaging streams are effective across all modes that file and provide validation that the industry and the system have the capability to share this messaging and the screening at the last point of departure and also at the non-last points of departure. This ACAS pilot and the implementation has followed a phased approach designed to promote collaboration between government and the industry stakeholders. The initial participants early on in this project were the express industry, including the carriers such as UPS, FedEx, and the forwarders such as DHL, TNT. The expansion began in 2011 to include the passenger air carriers, the all-cargo carriers, and freight forwarders. As part of this outreach effort, CBP and TSA issued the ACAS strategic plan in March of 2012. CBP issued a Federal Register notice in October of 2012 and is moving forward with an NPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, for later this year. The ACAS pilot, the screening of this so far, what we've run through this system is about 80 million shipments. There are currently 7 active participants in it. 20 more are in the queue to be brought into this program. The system is open for additional participation, and you can reach to us if you're interested in that. Some of the remaining challenges that we see with ACAS is the information platforms, the connectivity between carriers and forwarders, their system capabilities and limitations have presented some challenges that we're working through at the moment. The operational procedures, meaning the transfers to, from carriers, information capabilities, and the communications and areas of responsibility are still being worked on. Possible need to require the master airway bill or the manifest data in addition to the house airway bill data. The data we're receiving from freight forwarders is at the house airway bill level. The data we're getting from carriers is at the master level, and the challenge is the connectivity between those two data points. A little bit on our third-party K9 pilot expansion. The initial program has been completed, but still requires additional analysis. The concept of a private K9 cargo screening system, it has been validated, but the oversight and management and certification of this program may be costly. TSA plans to establish what we call an IPT, an integrated project team, to assess the full costs to industry as well as government as we expand this operational pilot. Findings of this IPT and subsequent operational pilot, if approved, would determine our next steps in the pursuit of a third-party K9 type program. Our known shipper management system as it exists today, the analysis on it, we received many recommendations from industry, 2 of which were to make improvements to the functionality of this electronic system to qualify shippers as known, and also develop alternatives to assist the industry in making shippers known without the use of KSMS via methods that industry is already utilizing and have in place. We're studying these recommendations currently, and we have convened with, again, another IPT to review these and working with our industry department partners to determine the capabilities. Talk a little bit about our associations and our involvement. ASAC, our Aviation Security Advisory Committee, and the Air Cargo Subcommittee. A notice of the ASAC charter renewal was published in the Federal Register on June 11th of this year. It included a request for additional applicants for the new committee term. The closing date for the applications is June 24th. The next meeting of the full ASAC is July 22nd, or this coming Monday. Currently, Jim Andersax of ALPA sits on the ASAC Air Cargo Subcommittee. This subcommittee published and submitted 7 recommendations to TSA, which included better coordination with DHS to enable stakeholder submission of new screening technologies. Their second recommendation was coordinating with ICAO to promulgate harmonized global standards, and also moving ahead as quickly as possible with the third-party K-9 pilot expansion and moving that into the full program. Another recommendation was establishing a formal process to receive industry input on government policy as early as possible. And again, establish the TSA K-9 as a primary screening for specific challenging commodities. Convening a working group to better identify ways to improve the known shipper management system, and working with CBP leadership to ensure any notice of proposed rulemaking is held until the pilot is fully analyzed in ACAS. TSA has responded back to the ASAC chair, outlining our next steps on their 7 recommendations. The current program, the Air Cargo Industry Engagement and Policy Representatives we participate on 3 Airline for America industry groups. The Security Committee, this group convenes quarterly and requests participation from a TSA industry engagement subject matter expert to participate in discussions with airline security presidents from each of the primary domestic airlines. Our Cargo Security Council, this group convenes quarterly and again requests participation from a TSA industry expert to participate in discussions with the vice presidents for air cargo for each of the primary airlines. And then we have the Air Cargo Security Working Group. This group again convenes quarterly and requests participation from a TSA subject matter expert to participate in discussions with the air cargo security directors for each of the primary domestic airlines. So as you can see, we're in a lot of different type groups at very, very different levels as well. I was asked a little update on the All Cargo Security Program. Currently, that program is going through senior leadership review within our agency, and we do expect that to be out in short order for public comment, as well as industry review of that. So that program has been updated. Some changes have been incorporated in it, and as it moves through our building, you'll see that out soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tom. From the Airports Council International, North America, Chris Bidwell is going to talk a little about some of the challenges once you decide to have these rules and policies in place, how you actually implement them on the structure and in the infrastructure. Chris, what can you tell us?
Thanks. I'd like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to Airline Pilots Association for inviting Airports Council International North America to speak today. Over the years, I've had the privilege of working with Captains Moak and Cassidy, Jerry Wright, Jim Andersax, and also Mike Fredericks, as well as other ALPA representatives. And I can say that ALPA does a great job in partnering with industry and representing you on security initiatives. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak on such a distinguished panel. Today, I would like to focus on several areas of importance to airport operators, including a discussion of the cargo security policies, procedures, and also the technologies that continue to shape the system. With the reduction in the number of passenger flights and even the termination or elimination of scheduled passenger service at some airports, cargo, particularly express and freighter cargo, has become an increasingly important to those airports. In certain cases, airports have made facility enhancements in an attempt to attract new or additional cargo service to their location. However, airports, not surprisingly, have only limited funds to make such investments. In addition, cargo growth has slowed to around 2% from the 5% annual growth levels enjoyed by airports and also airlines in the past several years. So what is it that has contributed to this stall, if you will, in cargo growth? Well, it's simple. Anything that drives additional costs or degrades efficiency. And not surprisingly, the impact of the 100% screening mandates contained in the 9/11 Act contributed to that stall. And although TSA's Certified Cargo Screening System, a risk-based initiative, was put in place to assist industry in partnership in meeting those mandates, there have been additional costs. In addition, there's been a mode shift from air to ground, rail, and maritime shipping. Therefore, we really need security policies, procedures, programs, and also technology that keeps cargo flowing through airports and provides for security of aircraft, employees, also the cargo, while minimizing costs and ensuring greater efficiency. We believe there should be an ongoing government industry initiative to review security requirements and procedures to improve effectiveness and also efficiency. And to that end, leveraging our close partnership with TSA, we constituted an in-depth security review group. And the intention of this group was to do what had been talked about for quite some time. As you recall, there were a host of security requirements that were imposed on industry when aviation was at level orange. And none of those requirements, up to when we started the in-depth security review, had been removed, rescinded, or in certain cases they had been adjusted. So we went back through this group and reviewed all security requirements, going back to even some that were in place pre-9/11. And what has resulted is, for the most part, streamlining of the security requirements, additional efficiencies, and the rescission of several old and duplicative requirements that really no longer made sense. You know, collectively as industry security professionals, operators, and regulators, we must recognize that rescinding a security measure or requirement, provided that doing so is supported by the latest intelligence information, is not bad. It's the essence of a risk-based system that we currently have in place, and it certainly does not mean that we're soft on security. Doing so allows resources to be reallocated to increase security in other areas. TSA's risk-based security initiatives are in accordance with key ACINA recommendations for using available data to focus the most invasive screening resources on those passengers which we know the least about and that cargo that presents an elevated risk. From a practical perspective, these risk-based programs harness available data and intelligence information to serve as a guide for the application of screening resources. The most invasive technology and screening is focused on those things that we know or people that we know the least about. We will continue to work with TSA on the implementation of these risk-based security initiatives and also ALPA on the expansion of the known crew member program. So we really need to take a strategic approach to aviation security, working with our international partners to share, assess, and operationalize the latest intelligence information to best position both government and industry to collectively address the global aviation security challenge in a way that ensures the appropriate level of security while streamlining the process for our passengers and our cargo now and into the future. As evidenced by the Yemen cargo plot, significant amount of data and intelligence information exists and should be effectively harnessed and used in order to enhance aviation security. Through working with industry, potentially in a classified setting, There's an opportunity for TSA, airports, airlines, ALPA, and others to identify strategies that enhance security while minimizing potential operational impacts of new security mandates. Airports utilize intelligence information in real time to make adjustments to their security baseline. And there's also a two-way sharing of information, both from TSA to airport operators and from airport operators back to TSA. So how are we working to provide one level of security? And Tom mentioned the Aviation Security Advisory Committee recommendations. I want to focus on a couple of those just briefly because I think it's important to demonstrate how we are looking to provide that one level of security. First of all, the opportunity for industry to provide input into the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology annual research and development cycle. Why is this important? Well, if you look at that technology which industry currently has available to screen cargo, it is basically that which has been transferred from the passenger environment, from the most part, for screening passengers and baggage. And the real challenge or impediment here has been the lack of effective and efficient technology to screen large consolidated shipments, especially those containing heterogeneous products. And given the lack of that technology, what is necessitated is that those shipments are broken down so packages can be screened separately and individually and then reconsolidated. That's very inefficient, costly, and degrades operational performance. The second thing is working with the international community through ICAO, if appropriate, to promulgate harmonized, internationally recognized standards for the development of cargo screening technology. And, this will permit manufacturers to develop screening technologies that can be used in multiple countries. And it will reduce cost, increase efficiency, and hopefully get to or pave the way for one-stop screening to eliminate the duplication where the same shipment is, in certain cases, screened multiple times when it crosses international borders. We need to begin today planning for the future, designing a sustainable aviation security system capable of efficiently and effectively screening cargo, passengers, and baggage. We all have limited resources, and therefore risk-based security programs are essentially, and we simply cannot continue the process of adding layer upon layer of security and installing more and more technology at airports after every new threat. Quite honestly, airports don't have the available space right now to accommodate that technology. Every part of the aviation industry plays a critical role in contributing to security. ACINA recognizes that the many security initiatives that have been identified by ALPA over the years, the airlines and TSA, and we look forward to continuing to work with our government and industry partners in advancing aviation security initiatives. Thanks, and I look forward to the questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. Well, around the room, we'd like to open it up. We've covered a whole gamut of subjects here. We've also got different perspectives with the Airports Council, with the TSA, with our own ALPA expert. What kind of questions do you have out there in the audience? Jerry, are we getting anything from the text world?
We do. We have a question from Captain Sean McDonald from the FedEx MEC, and he asks, it's probably a question for Mark. The FAA has conducted a study in the last 12 months on the number of hull losses that statistically will occur in the next 5 years due to a battery-related fire. What is that number?
They're expecting to have, I think it was 4 hull loss accidents for U.S. registered freighter aircraft by 2020, based on this study that's been conducted with the U.S. DOT, the Canadian Civil Air Transport Association, and the UK Civil Aviation Authority, Transport Canada, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's quite a staggering number. They're looking, they looked at the history of fires on aircraft, and they looked at the number of lithium battery shipments, and they can turn on or off the UPS accident in Philadelphia as being battery related or non-battery related. But based on that study, as I'm saying, it's 4 freighter hull loss accidents by 2020, and that's not including accidents by non-US registered aircraft.
Jerry, do you have
Do
another?
another one? Sure. Have one here I think is probably best for Tom, and that is, what are we doing about the lack of radiation detection or protection for cargo pilots who don't have radiation badges?
I'm not sure if that's for you
Yeah,
or for me, or I can start with that and give it to you. But I know within the dangerous goods world, radioactive material is another commodity that's very heavily regulated. And when we talked about inspections prior to loading and after unloading aircraft for dangerous goods, and I was talking about applying that same thing to lithium batteries, that is already in place for all other commodities of dangerous goods. The problem with radioactive material, however, is you can obviously be getting a leak, and you can't detect it through the same means that you would detect the leak of a flammable liquid. You can't see the flammable, you can see the flammable liquid leaking, you can't see the radioactive material leaking. And at ALPA for the ICAO Dangerous Goods Panel, we have policy on that, and we put forward a paper trying to require radiation detection when you load an aircraft and when you unload an aircraft, so you can detect leaks just like you detected for other dangerous goods. That paper was not successful at ICAO. So it's an area that we're still looking to achieve, still looking to work on. I do note that there was a very high-profile radioactive leak on a shipment that came out of Sweden into the United States and was transported on one of our carriers, ALPA represented carrier. And it wasn't until it was on the truck in the United States that it was even detected. And in fact, the truck operator thought that his equipment was malfunctioning because the radiation detection device was off the scale. So he thought it was broken, when in fact that had been leaking from the entire time it was improperly prepared in Sweden. And there was no detection equipment on the aircraft at the time, and that was not detected throughout the entire transport chain. So I think that highlights that it really can be an issue. And I guess with that, I'll hand it over to you all.
I think you did a good job answering that. No, I think that's outside of us as far as, you know, the air cargo security. When we get into hazmat, that gets into the FAA, this side of the house. So I concur with your response.
I'd like to grab the horns. One of the things that I've heard everybody say on this panel is the $5 word of the day is harmonization. Whether we're harmonizing our rules with ICAO when it comes to the carriage of lithium batteries, or whether we're harmonizing security protocols, domestically or international. So my question is for Tom and for Chris, as we look at both sides of this, from the TSA's perspective, is a security protocol that's going to be developed and in use by countries where we might perceive more of a potential threat risk, a Mexico, an India, a Middle East country. If we come down with a baseline and say this is what we plan on, is it your opinion that if we do come up with those standards, that they would be acceptable to countries such as the United States, where we typically probably face a higher threat or risk of terrorism from sources outside? And then for Chris, the same question from a cost perspective. Are you going to be comfortable or accepting of a standard that's developed in another country? Will that meet our airports and our industry's needs as far as being something that we can afford or that's considered reasonable for us?
Sure. I mean, as far as the global harmonization, TSA has taken, you know, great strides in what we call our NCSP, our National Country Security Program Review, the recognition of other countries' security programs. After a thorough review to include boots on the ground, our Office of Global Strategies has reviewed a lot of programs from a lot of countries. Currently, there is a list of countries that are recognized as meeting our needs. There are many more countries still in the queue to be reviewed as we receive their security programs. But I think with this review of their security programs, and again back to the ACAS, the Air Cargo Advanced Screening Requirement in partnership with CBP, by collecting that data in a risk-based approach and assigning a risk to that particular shipment and advising the air carrier at the other end or the forwarder down the road that this requires additional screening based on data. This partnership or this combination of these two programs, will get us to where we need as far as a harmonization globally on a strategic place.
Okay.
So what I would submit is that we need mutual recognition of security programs and technology between various countries. And I mean, I think as Tom said, we are well on our way, but there is a lot more work to be done. One of the things that the Beyond the Border Action Plan signed by Prime Minister Harper and President Obama paved the way for is mutual recognition of the Canadian Cargo Security Program, which basically allows cargo to be screened in accordance with Canadian security procedures on flights to the U.S., and then it does not necessitate rescreening prior to being loaded on a connecting flight here in the U.S. So, I mean, it's those sorts of programs and mutual recognition that will minimize cost and at the same time increase efficiency.
Okay, thank you. I've got another question. You brought up some of the ICAO standards with reference to lithium batteries. You pointed out that when it comes to lithium metal batteries, the United States actually has a higher standard. What we'd like to do is kind of bring pieces and parts of the best practices together. Can you describe for us, as an expert in the field, what your model program would be for the safe carriage of lithium batteries? What's on the script that says this is the right way to do business? Or in fact, is the very nature of this product make it something that maybe shouldn't be considered suitable for air cargo in certain realms?
Well, certainly the very nature of the product is essentially that you're going to have fires at certain times. So I think you need to design a system that acknowledges that and makes it such that if there is an incident, that you safely mitigate the hazard and have a good outcome. If you look at the carriage of lithium batteries in the cabin, that's something that we're much closer to achieving a standard that results in a safe transportation system. Namely, when you have lithium batteries in the cabin, you're going to have one or two devices. If there is an incident, it will be quickly discovered by the flight crew, the cabin crew, and they can take action. In this case, they need the proper procedures and training, and through the FAA Technical Center and ICAO, we've developed those procedures and training, and we try to get the widest possible application of those, namely that you have to cool the device with water or another non-flammable liquid so that you prevent the spread of fire among the cells. And so that's a great example of a case where we're not saying you have to eliminate every source of fire and have it so that every lithium battery never has an incident. You just need to make sure that if something does happen, you have a safe outcome. And the same broad overview would apply to lithium batteries being shipped as cargo. You need to make sure that if something does happen, that you can safely mitigate the hazard and land the aircraft. And to do that, we feel that lithium batteries should be treated as dangerous goods, and that all of the provisions of the dangerous goods regulations that apply to other commodities that could pose a risk in transportation are applied to lithium batteries, such that you have training for the shippers so they know how to properly prepare the packages, because most incidents are still caused by improperly prepared packages. And if we provide that training, then that will help reduce the number of shipments that aren't prepared correctly. Same thing with labels. Damage is another case where you can have a fire, and with lithium batteries, often several hours after the damage occurs. So it's a very insidious problem because you could damage the shipment while it's being loaded on the aircraft, And instead of getting a fire right away, you get the fire later when the aircraft is in the air. So if you have labels on it and internationally recognized hazardous materials labels, that will hopefully prevent some of these shipments from being loaded on the aircraft. It will provide greater awareness to the ground crews who are dealing with the shipments, so that if they do damage the package or it gets jostled or bumped or dropped, that they may not load it on the aircraft. Then third, you need stowage requirements so that you're putting the shipments in a cargo compartment that has a fire suppression capability to address that shipment, and then at a quantity that allows that fire suppression to be effective. So we still need to transport these commodities, and they need to be transported by air. They're part of our society. We have over 4 billion, 5 billion of these batteries manufactured every year, and they do need to be transported on our aircraft. And if we were to try to even ban them, all that would mean is that we'd have a lot of shipments that would be pushed underground. So we want to have a reasonable regulatory system that acknowledges the risk in transportation and provides so that if something occurs, you can safely mitigate the hazard. You mentioned lithium metal batteries, and that's a little bit different case, because in that case right now we found that the fire suppression systems on the aircraft can't handle the lithium battery fire. The fire would proceed as if the halon were not present. And the FAA has actually said there is no current safe method of shipping these batteries by air. And so the United States, for domestic shipments and those shipments involving US carriers, have prohibited them when they're shipped as batteries on US registered passenger aircraft. They can still go in very small quantities when installed in equipment, and they're allowed in unlimited quantities on cargo aircraft and passenger aircraft outside the United States. And so that is a very interesting case, because you have a commodity that's been recognized as being so dangerous that we issued emergency rulemaking to prohibit them on US passenger aircraft, but we still are allowing them essentially unregulated, not even on the pilot notification form, on cargo aircraft, which is a great disparity.
Well, I think it does highlight the different levels of safety in air cargo, which is one of the reasons that we're having this forum, is to highlight some of the differences and to find ways to, there's that word again, harmonize our rules with the rest of the air transportation system. Looks like we have another text question available. Jerry, could you help us out?
Sure. This is one for Chris. The May 2006 air cargo final rule required most airports to apply security identification display area protocols in all cargo air operations areas. Can you comment on how meeting that requirement impacted airports and how they were able to achieve compliance?
Well, you're exactly right. That was a requirement in the 2006 air cargo final rule, despite the ASAC recommendation that it be CITA-like requirements. The actual requirement came out that it be a full CITA, which includes several different things beyond just badge issuance and display. And in meeting that requirement, what the airports did is work with the operators in those environments to establish those systems. There are certain things that they could do if the aircraft operator wanted to utilize its badging system. That was something that the airports could recognize, provided that it interfaced with their access control system. So, I mean, the airports did different things depending on the environment so that it would be of maximum benefit to the operator.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from cyberspace? Last question, we're about out of time.
And this one is for Tom. The October 2010 printer toner cartridge attack against 2 U.S. flagged all cargo airliners demonstrated a clear danger to air cargo operations through improvised IEDs. Can you offer some thoughts on the impact of the air cargo advanced screening system in mitigating this threat and the future expansion of that into all cargo operations?
With the incident in Yemen, yes, it brought to light a lot of the necessities to increase our cargo screening on the all-cargo aircraft. ACAS, we believe, is the path forward for that, assigning a risk score, if you will, assigning a level of screening for something that through TSA and CBP we deem needing additional screening, that it can achieve that mitigation of the risk. We've done many tabletops with CBP at the targeting center as well as our industry partners to run these sort of what-ifs by, and the system has worked fairly well. Again, we've run, at this point, actually over 80 million individual shipments through there, and very low, how best to put this, a very minimal amount that have needed the additional screening based on the data received. So as we move forward with this ACAS pilot, and again, it is a pilot program at the moment, as we move forward with it, we do believe that that's the path forward to mitigate that risk.
Okay. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your time this afternoon. As a member of the Airline Pilots Association, your expertise and your time is obviously very valuable, and as a pilot who's out there working in the system, it's nice to know that there's a lot of good people out there working on these problems behind the scenes, doing everything we can to make this as safe and as economically efficient as we can. So again, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for your attention today.